I am disgusted, disturbed, pissed off, flabbergasted, befuddled. Just, it's pathetic, Donald Trump's reaction to these wildfires. Are they wildfires officially? I don't know. Urban fires in LA? The fires in LA? The reason why it's annoying me so much is because even if I were to concede every single thing that he says, if I were to eat up all of his bullshit the way his fans do, I still don't understand why the he's acting the way that he is. Like, if someone's house is burning down and it's burning down because they forgot to empty the lint in their dryer, do you yell at them for not emptying the lint in their dryer before you put out the house? No, you put out the fire first. Like, in what world would you focus more on yelling at Governor Newsom because of the fish? They're saving the fish with the Dream New scam, the smelt fish, or the DEI. They're putting in these lesbians to be in charge of the fire department, and it's ruining the fire department because they don't have any men to fight for the fire department. Like, what is this? Who in their right mind, as the elected leader of a nation, in their presidential instinct, who would act like this towards their own constituents? And this is after he spent the past month talking about expanding America. You can't even take of the America that we have now. You don't even like the America that we have now. Why do you want it? Why do you want more? I was on Ground News today and I get a notification that's like, here's your blind spot for today. And it was, Governor Newsom cuts fire budget by $100 million months before deadly California fires. Newsweek reports. Loaded title. Wow, I was interested. And so I click on it and I go to the Newsweek article and it's true. It's true. He took the money and he took the money away from all of these preventative wild forest measures and he funneled it to Cal Fire, to the agency that actually puts out the fire. Like, what? If you read the article tells you how his budget reallocated funds. Yes, some funds were just taken away. Yes, there was a percentage of funds that they did just get cut. Okay, it happens. But there were a lot of funds that just got reallocated from these preventative measures that were going towards preventing fires to reactive measures that are going towards putting out fires. The reason why we have this reallocation is because of climate change, because we are having these very extreme natural disasters and weather events far more frequently, far more intensely than ever before. And because of that, our budgets, our infrastructure, our reactionary teams, they're not equipped to deal with such a drastic increase in both frequency and intensity. And so you have to just reallocate budgets, which Governor Newsom did a really good job of building up the Cal Fire fund. Governor Newsom nearly doubled the Cal Fire fund. And he helped them not just in terms of taking the budget from $2 billion to almost $4 billion, but he doubled the amount of people on the ground. He doubled the resources. He's focusing on innovative technology in putting out these fires more effectively. He got innovative technology from DC to put these fires out more effectively. He's been doing work to help address this issue in real substantial ways that matter. And this article does a really good job of outlining some of the things that Governor Newsom has done in his term to help the California wildfires. So it's so surprising that this other article by the Gateway Pundit just got it so wrong by citing the Newsweek article. They cite the Newsweek article right up top at the beginning of the article. Newsweek on Friday uncovered explosive evidence. The explosive evidence in question was the California state budget. It was not an investigative research report. It was the publicly accessible California state budget. The reductions, which were part of last year's state budget and signed by Newsom in June, included a $5 million decrease for Cal Fire on fuel reduction teams. These included revenue used to fund vegetation management work by the California National Guard. Do you think that additional money would have been useful considering these wildfires are now the worst in American history? What kind of bullshit is this? Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, this is such a MAGA thing to do. And they have the Fox propaganda here, as always, throwing out all of these numbers that don't mean anything when you don't put them in context. It's the same thing that they did with all of the illegal immigrant statistics that they fucked up so royally. Putting all of these numbers big on screen, 20 million immigrants, 14,000 murderers, 13,000 rapists. Those numbers don't mean anything. 300,000 kids. Those numbers don't mean shit if you don't put them into context. 20 million immigrants. 20 million immigrants, what, are in the country, period? Okay. We're a country of 350 million people. 14,000 murderers. What, were let in during the Biden administration? No. We're let in over the past 40 years. And some of them are in federal custody. Like, you get what I'm saying? These numbers don't mean anything when you're just putting them out there to prove a point for your own motives and not actually understanding the context. Like, these people didn't even read the article that they referenced because the Newsweek article puts it into context and talks about the reallocation. It's so clear that it's a propaganda machine. And my final point is they literally copied from Donald Trump himself. The finishing closing argument is, instead, they ignored the science. They is obviously the deep state, the Democrats, ignored the science. We ignored the science, even though MAGA is the one that denies climate change. We're the ones that are ignoring science. Okay. They ignored science and catered to radical environmentalists, alleging because of a tiny fish called a smelt. They actually felt that giving the creature, and by extension California residents, less water would help. Unsurprisingly, it did not work. Doesn't that sound crazy? Doesn't that sound like such a batshit crazy thing to say? Like, wow, like, fires in Los Angeles happening because of a fish called the smelt. That's insanity. Yeah, well, Donald Trump truthed it, and now they're running with it. He said, quote, he wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called a smelt by giving it less water. It didn't work, but didn't care about the people of California. Let me tell you about the smelt fish. First, let's have a little geography lesson of California. Here is a map of the smelt fish in their habitats. This is a close-up map of the smelt fish critical territories. Do you see how that is the Bay Area of California? Do you see how that is so far away from Los Angeles? In case you don't know how public water works, you usually get your water from the nearest body of water. That is a river or a lake or a reservoir or an ocean, whatnot. The nearest body of water up in the bay is not the nearest body of water down in South California, in Los Angeles. And so, yes, there are restrictions being put in place in Northern California because of these Delta smelt fish, because the Delta smelt are so tiny that they get caught in water filters and they're endangered. And so environmentalists want to protect the endangered species, and they prevented the amount of water that can be filtered through to save the Delta smelt fish. Farmers are mad about this in Northern California. They're mad at Governor Newsom. People are angry. But it has nothing to do with the wildfires. And this is what Donald Trump does, is he takes an issue that has merit, takes an issue that has validity, and he completely envelops it in his own conspiracy and his own political agenda and uses it for his own gain, to the point that it completely invalidates and discredits the initial issue being posed in the first place. I'll give you an example. We can talk about corruption in the government. We can talk about insider trading and about term limits and about having more transparency with government officials. We can have that conversation. We cannot have that conversation if the narrative is that there are deep state officials all over with their hands all over everything, trying to take apart the government step by step from the inside out. And they're also working in Italian pizzerias to child traffic children. And they're also harnessing their fear for drugs to keep them youthful. What do they call it? Adrenaline? Do you see how I can't even go anywhere near the direction of that conversation because of how loaded it is? I'll give you another example. Voter ID. It's kind of crazy that we have no voter ID, right? That there's no photo ID that you can kind of just like show up and like, yeah, this is my name, this is my address, believe me. But we can't even have that conversation of somehow getting some type of national voter ID, some national standard ID that all citizens are entitled to, for them to show us, one that doesn't cost money so it's not disproportionately impacting low-income communities. Like people don't even want to have that conversation because automatically it's the Democrats are funneling in immigrants and giving immigrants the addresses of all of these native citizens and making the immigrants vote Democrat. You can't take these issues and blow them so far out of magnitude and expect people to still take you seriously. This is a joke. People are dying and you're blaming fish in Northern California. Like, what is wrong with you? Just for your own political gain, just because it happens to be something that his constituents are mad at him about, you want to harp on that and use it to further your own political agenda. And they're doing it too with DEI. For some reason, they have such an issue with anyone that's not a straight white guy being in any positions of power. Because remember, if any straight white guy is in a position of power, he earned it. You know that for a fact. You know that he earned it. He worked so hard to get there. But if any type of diverse, any woman, any non-white person, any non-straight person, if any one of them are in a position of power, they're only there because they are a woman, because they are not straight, because they are non-white. Because it's so unfathomable that any non-male, non-straight, non-white figure would be in any position of power. Listen to Charlie Kirk.
If your fire chief is gay, black, lesbian, trans, it matters whether or not you have a capable firefighting force. And they have intentionally tried to drive out all of the white people from the firefighting force in Los Angeles. Oh, we don't need white men to fight fires. I actually think Democrats believe that lesbians or gays have like some sort of magical superpower to stop fires. We can't put out the fire because guess what? When you start to prioritize diversity and sexuality over merit, things tend to not go well.
Hey, guess what? When you have an administration that prioritizes money and loyalty over merit, things aren't going to go too well. And I'll leave it at that, because that doesn't even deserve a response. If Charlie Kirk genuinely believes that he would be better in the hands of an average white guy than a hardworking lesbian that worked her way up from the ranks to become fire chief, okay, live your life like that. It's just so disgusting.